I'm so happy to give a warm welcome to David, but I wanted to acknowledge that last week we lost Jane Goodall. Thought I'd make it farther than this. She was a dear friend of mine, and I would not have my career without her. And therefore, CASY would not exist without her. We owe her a huge debt. I'm so proud that as the steering committee is thinking toward the future and in an expansive way, expansive inclusion is so important to us, that we are actually acknowledging all sentient beings in our declaration. And I know that Jane would be so proud of us for doing that. So this is a happy time as well as a sad time. And I'm so glad actually that David is the one doing this first presentation after this loss, because every time I've spoken with David, I feel so energized afterward, so happy, so ready to take on the world. So you were the perfect person, and I know you're a little nervous. I think everyone's always a little nervous, but you'll find that this is a very warm, welcoming, supportive group of people. Just a quick reminder, if you want us to read your comments in the chat, try to remember to put the word read right before. When we get to the Q&A, which will be after David's done talking, we'll raise our hands in the frame or use the icon at the bottom right. I think that's about it. David's built in some little breaks where people like me who have auditory processing challenges can catch up and be fully included. So with that, I'm so excited to turn it over to David.
Hey, so grateful to be here. Let me share my screen. And I found Zoom has a new little trick I'm going to show you guys about. So if you want to learn about a new capability that Zoom has, here we go. Now, do you all see me in your lower left-hand side of the screen?
Yes.
I got a thumbs up. Cool. Oh, I got a buddy in here. My good friend lives down the freeway from me about 45 minutes. She's one of us, and she's also a relationship coach. Real great. She gave me a lot of great knowledge on attachment theory. So I better start so we don't run out of time. But I'm David Good. The name of this title is From Isolation to Leadership, Closing the Understanding Gap Across Neurotypes. And what I've been able to do, a lot of it thanks to medical treatments, which I'll go into in a little bit, is that I can now understand autistic people and I can understand neurotypical people. I think instead of saying holistic, I'll use the word neurotypical tonight. I may use those interchangeably, but it was how I originally saw it was because when I built International Friend Connection. Well, let me get to that part. We can go ahead. But I'm certified professional coach. Got declared a point of light by Points of Light. You can get in touch with me, davidgood.org. And I'm using Gamma for this presentation, so a little bit new software. But yeah, again, great honor to speak before Yale in the Cultural Autism Studies Unit. This is like a dream come true for 12-year-old me. So pretty cool to be here and see all of y'all amazing people. Please feel welcome sharing chat. Where y'all calling from tonight? And also, if you don't want to share where you're calling from, inspired by my friend Yermi Kirkus. He teaches a class in gratitude and happiness. So if we could start with a little gratitude, share something you're grateful for. If you can do it in the past 24 hours, that's what Yermi taught me. He said, gratitude works better if you think of something you're grateful for or thankful for in the past 24 hours. It's just a simple practice. And every psychologist I've talked to has said gratitude is just a simple practice you can integrate in your life. That will literally cause you to have big improvements in your life over time if you practice it. I mean, whenever I get a hard day, when that depression hits, try to think what I'm grateful for. And if I can't think of anything grateful, usually I have a piece of candy or a cookie, and hey, I'm grateful for that. Let me pop up chat here a minute, see if we got anything in here. I want to give a shout out. Oh, someone's calling from Montana. Very grateful for the opportunities that they've had. We got West Virginia. Great to see someone from West Virginia working the homework with their children. Grateful for that. And we got Kalamazoo right down the street. Trumbull, Connecticut. Someone's grateful for their dentist in North Carolina. Uh, from Michigan. Cool. Grateful for the internet enabling them to work at home. Cool. I'm going to go on to the next slide here and we can officially get started. Like I said, I got a couple little breaks built in for people who get overwhelmed, who need to catch up, and that's fine too. So a little bit about me. I was officially diagnosed autistic in 2022, hired neuropsychologist. There was like 3 days of testing, computerized an interview, and it was like weight of the world got lifted off my shoulders. So I knew I wasn't broken. I was just born different and meant for different things. So like grew up in a dairy farm. Farm work was not for me, especially having OCD, being a bit of a germaphobe. Um, and so that was a bit rough, but I was great with computers and the internet, taught myself software development, building websites. Um, and so I got that diagnosis of autism. They said before they'd call me Asperger's, because I fit in the highly intelligent mode. Probably y'all grew up like me, pretty bullied. Maybe some of you were the really bright kid. But you kind of put your foot in your mouth when it comes to people, and then you'd be very confused as to their reactions to you. That was my experience totally. Um, got recognized, that photo there got recognized by President Biden for the work I did during COVID running International Friend Connection. And we founded that in 2014. Points of Light, President George H.W. Bush's foundation declared me a point of light, permanent title I can use. Yes, International Friend Connection, we peaked at about 40,000 members, 50 global groups, virtual and in person. Um, Worked with 100 volunteers, and we've all did over 4,500 free events. Most of the free events are in Michigan. Virtual events were around the world. I personally hosted over 2,100 free events since 2014. I had been featured on ABC, NBC, Fox, and CBS. I'm a certified professional coach. But I love to train and mentor leaders and run the International Friend Connection. Next year, I'm going to see if we can become a fiscally sponsored project of like a nonprofit so that we can raise funds. I can do this full time. Um, I created something called the Friend Magnet Framework, which was my own framework for human connection. So I could figure people out and figure out how to connect with people and make friends. Involved with the Octopus Movement think tank as chief of global affairs. They're a nonlinear think tank in Europe. And forthcoming, I'll probably do a lecture on my YouTube channel in a good week and a half called Bedridden to the Boardroom, my story of how I ended up in like endless days of just horrible migraines, chronic pain, from going from there to speaking in boardrooms in New York City. And got another thing I'm working on called the Framework for Good, which is kind of strategy for mission-based organizations. I kind of saw the inside story of how one company made a 7x exit in 3 years. And so I come up with a framework so smaller organizations can integrate values and mission into their business at every level. It's a simple framework. So I'm looking forward to doing that talk and maybe putting that into a book as well. So yeah, one of my core philosophies, and that's me and my buddy David Siegel, ex-CEO of Meetup there. Now he's involved in some really cool stuff like international peace initiatives and things like that. Um, yeah, so one thing we did a talk a while back together in the International Friend Connection group, and it's like what I've realized over the years, friendship is the number one skill that you can have, and you'll see why I call it a skill. And it's like a superpower because the more people you know, the more people that know, like, and trust you, um, it unlocks more opportunities and more luck in life. And the core philosophy is that um, I believe so. My thing was I was software developer, computer guy. I got hurt by people all my life. You know, you're made to feel broken growing up. Probably if you give me a W in chat if you were made to feel broken like you were growing up too. I bet a lot of people in here did. And it's not fun to grow up as a kid like that. You think like you don't belong, that you're broken. Um, and so I learned software development, but my brain always told me. I remember my brother, he went through Dale Carnegie course and gave me the book How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I read it, but I'm like, oh, I could never do this stuff. That's what it was, 2013 or something like that. I'm like, that's why I computer guy, because people do not make sense. I just can't make sense of them. But then when you have that all taken away, you kind of got to pivot. Some people say I'm the king of pivoting because I've had everything in life taken away so many times. And I pivoted to go on to do other things, which a lot of people said that's amazing, but you know, the alternative of not pivoting is a lot worse. And oh, so I'm going to have pictures of my buddies in here from meetup people I know, because people always say it was a local owner of a local West MI social club group that I can go to and not have to run, which is amazing. But she says, "Oh, your best energy is when you talk about the people you know and your friends." So I always get a big smile on my face. So this is beginnings. I'm going to start 2011. Had a bad relapse in depression. You know, it was due to my cats dying. I was so attached to those cats. Those are my only safe beings in the whole world. And you know, you lose that. I'd always had depression. Um, Eventually ended up getting treatment resistant depression, but you know, finally, and I was mad at having this other relapse. So I went to Psychology Today, did the therapist search, and I had gone through a little bit of acceptance commitment therapy because I have chronic migraine. And so there was a migraine clinic who had me meet with a therapist that did acceptance commitment therapy, and that changed my life. I had crippling social anxiety, like I hadn't met any new people in decade or more, and I was afraid to be around new people. I had like one best friend. We've been friends since elementary school. You know, his life was changing, having kids, getting married, so he can't hang out as much before. Um, and I remember, so I was working with that therapist. I wanted to meet more people, and I remember the website meetup.com. Um, and she's like, well, that's going to be your first acceptance commitment therapy goal because your values, kind of human connection, making new friends. And so I remember I went to that board game group. I shook the whole time. I said hello to the organizer. And despite my shaking, I played a game for an hour, and that was too much, and I went home. But then I made myself go back the 3 times a month they had it. And then another group opened up and I went to that. And then I made a discovery that kind of blew my mind. So not all people are bad, because I grew up, so I became a jerk when I was young. I People treated me so bad. I got bullied. Like so I'm just gonna hate people, and I hated people all my life. But then I went to that board game group and I'm like, you know, not all people are bad. I've just been around a lot of the wrong people all my life. So that kind of blew my mind. It was a lot of years of assumptions. And then later, once I began to study my own thought patterns, how my brain works, and learn more about how autistic brains work, I know I do a lot of catastrophizing. I do a lot of black and white thinking and a lot of all or nothing thinking. So when I was real young, because a few people bullied me, then my brain made the assumption that, oh, everybody hates me. So then I'm just gonna treat everybody like a jerk, and that didn't get me very far. But you know, now I know that was just the old brain telling me things that weren't true. So yeah, went to some meetups 2014. First found my first group, West Michigan Geeks, and same thing happened again. I jokingly tell people I did it at a Panera Bread close to my house, so if nobody showed up, I wouldn't have too far to go home and cry. I'm joking about that. Well, I'm only about 80% joking about that, but yeah, remember people showed up. We had like 8 people show up. And then I was super quiet. I could like maybe say hi to people, and that was it. Um, and I just shook the whole time, but people had a good time. And then at the end, they turned to me and they said, "Oh, this was great. When are we gonna do this again?" And then my brain's like, "Oh no, we gotta do this again." So I kept doing twice a month, and then pretty soon I was doing it once a week. And then other people would come and they're like, "Oh, can we help out?" And So I had to step up and do leadership, but I never thought I could even start a group. I debated taking over a group that was going to go out of business or get deleted. And the day I decided to take it over, it got deleted. So I'm like, oh no, I have to start my own. And that was West Michigan Geeks. Um, so a year later, that summer, I felt a deep sense of loneliness all my life. And I sat back that year and something peculiar came to my mind. I'm like, those deep thoughts and feelings of loneliness, they had diminished, practically almost gone away for the first time in my life. Um, and that, learned a lot about leadership that, no leader is fearless. If they do, they're probably lying to you. It's about, it's about doing what you need to do in the face of fear, doing what's important in the face of fear, doing what you value in the face of fear. That's what leadership is. But then, 2015, I'd been back to work as a software developer for a few years, took a real hard job. I saved a company, but I worked 2 months at the keyboard, 16 hours a day, no days off. Because the company's, well, yeah, a company made their old software developer mad, which I should have taken as a sign not to take this job. Nowadays, if I learned about boundaries, and so I'd say, hey, I'm not going to take this job, it'd ruin my health. But back then, I was a big people pleaser, so I just say yes and ruin my health if I needed to. And now I know that's autistic burnout. But yeah, so I ruined my health, a chronic migraine, all those days at the computer combined with an old injury from a car accident. I permanently ruined my neck. And I was bedridden most of the days of the week. 2016 was kind of the year of heck. I don't want to swear on here because we're talking before such a esteemed institution here, but 2016 was a year of heck. And, I lived my mom, looked after my mom 20 years before she passed. But yeah, just absolutely hopeless. I'd never be a computer programmer again. I'd look at a phone or a tablet for like maybe 20, 30 minutes, and next day I'd be in horrible pain again. So in chronic migraine, just every day, most of that year, I'd go to the ER once a month and they'd break up that migraine and then it'd start back up in a couple of days. Um, and then later I developed kind of treatment resistant depression too from being in such a pain state for a long time. Those were a lot of lost years. Um, but despite the pain, if I was not bedridden that day, I would still show up at the coffee shop and run that event because I know those people were dependent on me to make some friends. There was nothing like it in the area. I had some great friends. A couple of doctors moved to town while he was doing his fellowship, I think, here in Grand Rapids. Some of the best friends I've ever had in the group. And they moved back a year later to be closer to their parents when they're having kids. And they said, there's just no David Good in our town, making this city as welcoming as you. So that was one of the greatest compliments I ever got. And, it was years of pain and depression before I'd find anything that worked. A lot of times it was hard to hang out. I don't want to trigger anybody or go into details, but I had to look out for my mom and I had to look out for my community. I had, whether I felt good or bad, as long as I wasn't bedridden, I could sit at a coffee shop or someone would drive me to a coffee shop and I could run an event. And then like at a great organizer, she would do like beach days, Michigan's Adventure Amusement Park here, wine tour, things like that. But then I couldn't go on those because of how bad my migraines were at the time. So that's what helps. I'm a big fan of dealing with reality as it is instead of how I want it to be. But yeah, so we're fast forward now to 2020. Um, and COVID hit, and so we couldn't meet in person anymore. Once about November will run. Now, if you're in Michigan, November runs around. We have winter basically from November until May 1st. Sometimes we even get snow in May. So what's that? Like 6 months of winter? So we have 6 months of winter. I was on a bus in New York. And if I talk a bit too fast, give me a little signal to slow down. But kind of was in a bus on my way to New York last year. I stay in Jersey, and the bus driver asked me where I was from. I said, Michigan. He's like, oh, Michigan, why you want to live there? When one winter stops, another one starts right back up. So funny guy. He gets some real funny bus drivers in New York. But so 2020, it was November. I'm like, how am I going to survive this COVID crisis with my depression, not being able to get together with people? Um, So I launched a third meetup group because with the plan you could have three groups. I launched a third one. It originally was called Less Than Loneliness because I'm real passionate about the social isolation, loneliness problem that we're facing. Um, and then people started showing up. And then eventually we added more. I bought another account, added more groups. We had like four international friend connection groups, like six groups we put the meetings in, and we get like 100 people a night, and it was a lot of sad stories. People in these large cities, they wouldn't see people for weeks. They'd be like, "We're locked in our apartments, not seeing people for weeks. We get the groceries delivered." It was such a cruel isolation for people. People with no history of mental illness were on their last legs, and when they found my meetings, I get a lot of emails like thank God for these meetings because like this is just so hard. Like some people didn't even want to be around anymore because of the isolation, but every night they could call in and see some friendly faces. And we had some ground rules that this is going to be an oasis from the outside world. We're not going to be mean. No one's going to be mean to anybody. We're not going to talk about anything controversial. It's just let's take our nervous systems from up here and kind of get them down to here for a while and keep each other company so that we can all get through this. And then eventually expanded to 50 chapters, virtual and in person, 40,000 members. Oh, 22, my mom passed away. I looked out for her for 20 years, gave up a lot of things, relationships, some career stuff. Look out for my mom's, and that was worst thing I ever gone through. But I was able to, and I gave this. You can go on the YouTube channel and you see get that at davidgood.org. But um, yeah, so that was pretty rough, but I was able to throw a lot of group members into a chat and I said, "Hey, I never asked you guys for anything." And like, by then we'd been doing meetups, 8 years or so. Never asked you guys for anything for 8 years, but I can't be alone right now. And for the first 6 weeks after she passed, every weekend a friend stayed with me, and every night friends would come over after work, different friends. And so after that, I knew this was my life's mission, that everybody would have those kind of connections. Um, and then, so our current mission, we're not doing the online stuff anymore. And I'd like to get it going in the future, but we want to build more local chapters. Like we have one, we're opening up in Sarasota. I got a guy in Japan waiting to train him and open up Fukuoka, a smaller city over there. I got a guy waiting in Singapore. Um, so once we figure out how to fund the organization next year, after I get a lot of this stuff I need to get out of my head, my book and my frameworks, then we're going to I want to figure out how to fund the organization so we can build these local communities, because people like us deserve to have a safe place to make friends or recover from social anxiety. And it works so great every time. I mean, I have people like in one of the virtual meetings had a guy like us would come. He was terrified to be on camera. He couldn't speak on camera, but after a month or two, he could come on camera and he would play the table topics game with us and answer every single question. So I love seeing people's progress like that. I love seeing people who they're like shaking when they come, and after a couple months, you may see them smile and laugh, and it's making that psychologically safe place. So yeah, that's our current mission. And every time stuff's been taken away from me, I've learned to pivot. And again, I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't learn acceptance commitment therapy. So okay, this I would say this is almost one of the most important things I've ever learned in my life. And I came up with it and put it into a little framework that you can start improving your life tomorrow. Little thing I call the no fail formula. And this came from my organizer, Dale, who helped me with the International Friend Connection virtual groups. He was retired leadership at Intel and IBM. And we had a little crisis where I was beating myself up for I felt I was being a bad leader. But part of it was my people pleasing ways caused a crisis in the group. I left people in the group that should not have been in the group. So I wanted to try to make everybody happy. And I learned, if you don't have boundaries, those innocent people that need to be protective, that want to use the group as a recovery space, then they can't do that. So we had a crisis and I was beating myself up. He's like, I got to have a talk with you. And I'm going to tell you about something I learned at learned at IBM and Intel when we were trained, and I came up with the no-fail formula based upon what he taught me. So when you make a mistake, when you try anything, there's three outcomes. You can either win, where everything goes right and you do what you want to do. You can lose where you make mistakes, things go wrong. And then he introduced me to a third thing called the learn. So so how it works is that every time you try something, whether it's going out to a new meetup, um, afterwards you get home, you say, okay, what went right during this thing? Maybe if you've never been before, you're able to stay 30 minutes. Well, that's going to be a win right there. So see, even though you may not had made a bunch of friends or even talked to anyone, that's your win for the night, because wins are stacked on tiny baby steps that add up. There's no Hail Mary passes, to use a football metaphor. I don't know why I did that, because I don't like sports, but no, you don't throw yourself right into it. You take those tiny baby steps. Maybe you can stay for 30 minutes or an hour like I did. And had a great woman come last week, super nervous. And so I knew to send she was young in her 20s. I knew to send my co-host, and we had great other woman helped out. And I knew to have talk to her rather than me, because I'd be too intimidating to talk to her. But she stayed for the whole time. I was very proud of her for doing that. And that's better than what I did. But anyhow, so the framework is the win, the lose, and the learn. So the learn is every time you do something, you evaluate what went on and what you can learn from that. Um, and what this does is you want to use this as a metaphor. And if anyone has any trouble understanding the metaphors, I can explain them in the Q&A. But so think of it as like gaining experience points in a video game. You do those low level things where you get a few experience points, and then those add up, level up your character. Well, this every time you do something, you're gaining experience in life, and over time, all those slow things add up. Um, Let me go to another component. So you learned about the win, the lose, and the learn. Now there's another component to it. So afterwards, going to give a shout out to my buddy Dennis LaRue, Tanya Tyler, both military leadership and mentors of mine. I call this the after action report, the debrief. So I do an event, anything new I do. Here's what I do when I get home, or I sit and think about it. I go, okay, so what went right? What went wrong? What could I control in this instance, and what could I not control? And then after evaluating all that stuff, what can I learn from this situation going forward? Sometimes you may just have a rough, awful time, and the only thing you can learn is, hey, I got through it and I survived and I'm okay. Or like I went to this event and my heart was beating out of my chest. My brain's telling me, no, you need to go home. People are going to be mean to you. Don't say anything. Don't go by the people. Well, maybe I sat there for 30 minutes when I couldn't before, and that's the win out of that. Or maybe sometime everything went bad and there was nothing you could learn. And what I would learn, somebody asked me this question, well, what can we learn if nothing goes right? Well, that's where you evaluate what you could control and what you could not control. And the lesson maybe is that we can't control everything. So we use psychological flexibility to just say, hey, we got to accept that we can't control everything. And then we got to kind of roll with the punches, kind of kind of say, hey, if it's a random thing that we can't control, doesn't mean it's going to happen next time. So yeah, what this does is it turns your mistakes, instead of a source of shame, they become your teachers, and they're valuable data that will accelerate your learning and growth. Um, this helps you create a growth mindset. Help me get over my perfectionism. That's why this is the most important thing. I think this is almost the most important thing I ever learned in my life. So afraid to try new stuff, especially as an autistic person, a condition that used to be called Asperger's. Um, it's I like doing everything the same way. And, I had a medical treatment, ECT, big mistake for me. Afterward, my mind was like my mind was like a library of books. Memory was like certain books are missing. So it's worst mistake I ever made, agreeing to that. But I found other great stuff that allows me to do what I do now. I get transcranial magnetic stimulation. That's been the best treatment for me ever. along with there's Spravato out there too. So if you have like treatment-resistant depression, there's a lot of hope for you out there. Just don't give up. You got to continue the fight because there's so many new treatments coming down the pipeline. It's wonderful what's going on now. But yeah, so the no fail formula, all my mistakes were now my teachers. And making a mistake was like gaining experience points. So I'm getting better just from making the mistake. And it helped me be able to take calculated risks. I don't take any crazy risks, but I take calculated risks. And instead of being exhausted from all my mistakes and beating myself up, um, I was able to learn the lessons and use the lessons to pivot what I can do and what I can do in life. And yeah, and just learning this totally changed my life and my thoughts around failure. Because I've had businesses that have failed, and I've always beat myself up. But what did you learn from building this business? Well, you picked up a lot of skills so that when you build the next business, because most business people I know that are successful, they've had to start a bunch of businesses before one took off, and they learned stuff all the way, and they learned what not to do. I remember a buddy of mine, we had a little company that didn't work out, then but went on to make a huge furniture manufacturer. And then one day he said, "Yeah, I had a business, but manufacturing company burnt down my wedding day, and we didn't have enough insurance." But he learned the lesson of having enough insurance then. Want to take a little break while I check the time? Some things to think about. Is there anything that you may need to pivot in your life? And also, here's a question I learned at CMX when Meetup sent me to a CMX conference in California once. Um, who can help you with that pivot? A lot of the times, I feel I got to do everything by myself, and you can take a break for a few minutes. I'm gonna tell me Alexa, set a timer for 3 minutes. So I'll let Alexa tell me when the break's up here, but I'll keep talking, or y'all can take a break for 3 minutes. But it's who can. I watched a talk by a lady in Australia, and she said it's not necessarily what can I learn to help me pivot, it's who can help me, because we can only learn so much and everything takes a team. I was always the person in school who did all the group project by myself because I wanted everything to go right, but I didn't learn about teamwork that way, and because I thought the grade was more important than learning about teamwork. Looking back on it, I would have told like 14-year-old David Good that, living in the a society we're living in now, teamwork's the most important thing you can learn. Don't worry about the grade. So yeah, we'll just take a couple minutes, be quiet here for a couple minutes. We can type some things in chat if you have any ideas, thoughts about what you may need to pivot. Oh, we got some people, we got Nova Scotia calling in, Louisiana calling in. Grateful to start a book project. People are grateful for the neighbors. We got Boston calling in, great relationship. People grateful for pets. Maryland's calling in, receiving a lot more support. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about masking coming up in a little bit. I'm just catching up with the chat here. Oh, so quick question about the ECT. Yeah, no, there's still a lot of photos of me in it, and I don't have those memories. But finding TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation, got a great clinic in town. Actually, I made friends with the owner, and then he was like, "Oh, let me run your insurance." So, if I ever get bad, he gets me right in priority. I also run patient group ketamine clinics, and because I was one of their patients, and now they have Spravato, so I'd encourage people to try Spravato, and I've known so many people that's helped. um but yeah, no, never fully recovered from ECT, but what TMS did, it's restored my ability to learn. Before I found TMS in 23, I was very hopeless being able to learn new things, because like after ECT, I would read a paragraph or a chapter of a book and not remember what I read, and I'd just want to cry, because before that, I could read a thick book in a few days. Um, got a couple minutes here. We can rest. Otherwise, if people got a question for me.
question?
Oh, sure.
Okay, so I kind of actually had the opposite experience of you. Is I had a lot of good experiences with people, partially because of how my mom knew from a young age that I was neurodivergent because she didn't realize at the time, of course, but that she was also neurodivergent. So she was trying to always take care of me.
Yeah.
So she's usually surrounded with me with good people. Well, I went to an autism camp and I put me a best friend, and then I fell out with her when it was a whole mess. And then I went on another group. I was trying to group to kind of help me get over her, and that ended up being a disaster after a while because there were two people, there were one person there who turned out just awful. And it was using me. Like, I was
Yeah.
very naive about how YouTube works, and I didn't realize he was using me just to get money and whatnot. And
Oh, I'm
the
so
other one
sorry.
was just so with that kind of experience, I've been kind of feeling more negative about people lately, and I don't feel like how do I tell if people like how do I tell when people are actually good and when do I overlook their faults and
Well, I have a series of classes.
Classes on my YouTube channel you may find interesting, my whole friend magnet framework. And one of the classes I go into like navigating friendships and friend groups, how to know if a friend's good for you or bad for you. Because, you know, when I was little, I fell into that trap. I had a best friend and he ended up kind of bullying me a bit. And, you know, during formative years, you get stories told to you. They stick in your head your whole life if you're autistic. And then you got to go through like trauma therapy. I use internal family systems therapy to great success. Works great with acceptance commitment therapy, and I'll go that. But I did feel welcome to check out my classes. Davidgood.org is a link to our YouTube channel, and that may give you some of the answers you're looking for there. I'm going to move on because our break's up here. Now, in 2022, after my mom died, I kind of thought to myself, well, I need to level up my leadership skills and business skills and communication skills because I got a lot more time in my hands. I'm not looking after my mom. Um, and one of my very favorite books, series of books, nonfiction books, was The Go Giver by Bob Berg. And that's actually a picture of me and Bob Berg. He's my buddy. I flew down to West Palm Beach to see him earlier this January. Um, and so he had a private community he opened, and it was mentorship. And I knew I was thinking to myself, who can I learn from? And I'm like, now would be a good time to join Bob's community. And I was in the midst of grief, so I didn't always learn everything, but I attend the meetings every week, twice a week, and asked a lot of questions, learned a lot of communication tips. Um, and, you know, I went in there with there'd be some great people in there, and I'd talk to someone, they were like, oh, you know who that is? He buys and sells businesses for millions of dollars all the time. But yeah, so in my goal in there, I gave them a little request. I said, I want to learn how to communicate better in business settings, so I can learn to advance my career. And what I learned from the Go Giver series, a series of 4 books, 1.2 million books sold. Most important one, what I learned from the Go Giver influencer kind of blew my mind. And then just working with Bob in the community, I told him, feel welcome to point out if there's certain things I say that may be off-putting to people. Teach me how to say it in a different way. And then as I was learning, I said, oh, this is like when I was running International Friend Connection. When people would come in from different countries, I would say, please let me know if I do something that's offensive to your culture because I want to learn to communicate across cultures. And the Japanese friends I made, they were like, oh, you never say anything that would offend us or everything. But and it's very interesting communicating with Japanese people compared to Russian people, because Russian people, Dutch people, they would just immediately say what's on your mind. Like there's something stupid, my Russian friends would be like, oh, don't do that. That's stupid. But and then Japanese people usually communicate kind of a roundabout way because the respect, the politeness is very important. So you kind of have to learn to read between the lines. But you know, I've just grown to love people. I love meeting people from everywhere. and seeing what people have to teach me. But now I'm going to give you the big breakthrough that I found out, because me as software developer, logical thinker, base everything on logic. But then later I kind of examined my own thoughts. I'm like, maybe I am more feelings based than I thought. I was on a lot of meds that blocked out my feelings before finding like TMS and other treatments. So I was very disconnected from emotions. But so game changing insight I learned from Bob, it's all about how you make people feel, and human connection is based upon feelings. And there's three things for people to basically go give your influencers about how to make your opinions matter to people. And most people think logical arguments will change someone's mind, and that's the way I work too. But really, feelings change people's minds and cause influence. And influence happens very slowly over a long period of time. People have to like you, know you, and trust you. And I talk about that and how to do that in one of my classes. And really, the secret comes down to 3 C's I came up with. So it's caring plus communication in a way that they can understand forms a connection. Or if you want to use respect plus communication in a way they can understand, will form a connection with that person. And like Bob's a great salesman. I also been trained by other great salesmen, like my friend, one of the good guys of sales. And he always drummed in, learn how to establish rapport with people, learn how to establish rapport. And you can make a connection with someone very quickly by kind of doing the opposite of what most people do, without masking too. So once I learned that it was all about feelings and kind of examined myself and like, yeah, I like to be around people where I feel good being around. And I tend to avoid people that, who drag me down, or complain all the time. But so some insights. So Bob kind of came up with the concept of feel good questions. He may have a trademark on that. So I'm kind of using that with permission there. But so here's what I teach my organizers to do and my hosts to do. So when we get someone new to the group, we want to find some things about for them and we want to make a connection for them. So what I teach them to do, ask a feel good question like one of these three. What have you been doing for fun lately? If they don't have any answers for that, then so that like, oh, this is a great question for autistic people because what have you found interesting lately? You get them talking about their special interests, then you gotta do some active listening for maybe 10, 15 minutes. While in just enjoy listening to them learning about what they're talking to. But everybody likes talking about fun things they do. Everybody likes talking about things that they enjoy, and get them talking about that and doing active listening. You can see a little smile come to their face. Or anything you're looking forward to. That's a great question. But we want to, it's what I found to be an interesting person. It's more important to be interested in other people. That was a key. And once I started speaking less about myself and at first I was like, oh, I'm feeling kind of left out. Or is this masking or whatever? And I'll talk about that in a little bit. But then I found I really enjoyed listening to people, but first, before I could do that, I have a mindset class called Friend Magnet Mindset class on YouTube. I do a lot of things. I had a lot of like, I didn't like people, had a lot of hate in my heart, very judgmental. I had to become a non-judgmental person. And what was interesting, I found judgment was a two double-edged sword. I was raised kind of in a judgmental household. And grow up 80s and 90s, very judgmental time. But the more I let go of my judgment against other people and intercepted those thoughts and kind of redirected them, the easier I was able to let up and be myself, because I always felt so much shame, and I wasn't able to let go of my own shame until I let go of all my negative thinking about other people and other types of people. So what I get my organizers to do for new people, just ask them a feel-good question, do some active listening, which is like pay attention. There's a phrase in one of the Go Giver books that Bob and John David Mann came up with. It's called listen with the back of your neck. It's a metaphor, of course, but yeah, and active listening involves like a lot of things. So there's one tool that's great for people with ADHD when it comes to active listening, because I'll be listening to something, my mind will wander, but every so often I use a tool called paraphrasing. And that lets someone know that I'm listening to them, which also lets someone know that they're important to me and that I care about them. And so slowly, and you can make a connection with someone in under a few minutes just using these techniques. But really, if you use it as like a manipulation trick, it's not going to work because people will sense if you're fake, and people can sense if you really respect them, really care about them. So you got to do the inner work in order for these to work. But if you're just trying to use it as tricks, it's not likely to work as much. But yeah, be interested in people, get them talking about things they like, and then wait for people to reciprocate. And over time, I have a class about boundaries, navigating friendships and groups. Over time, if there's no reciprocation or relationship, if it's a one-sided, you're the one doing all the work, that may not be right for you. But so I use a little metaphor for those computer guys like me, developers. So autistic people aren't broken computers. We're just like running Linux in a Windows world. So every time we communicate, a lot of miscommunication. The way we communicate tends to be in the way I communicated over time, quite a bit different. And actually, I think some of my communication patterns were due to trauma and not basically being autistic. But it all depends upon your level of disability, how your autism affects you. Not everybody can do everything. Just like I'll never be Michael Jordan dunking baskets, and sometimes my brain goes faster than my body can keep up. So don't one thing I tell people is don't judge yourself like you're trying to judge a fish for climbing a tree. You're not going to beat up on poor fish for not being able to climb a tree. So don't judge yourself like that, but test your capabilities to see different things you are. There's one of my favorite books is The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and so I'll paraphrase a quote. It's like, know yourself, know your enemy. You're always victorious. And enemy is a metaphor because that whole book's a metaphor. But that self-knowledge, I try to gain as much self-knowledge of myself and what I'm capable of as I thought. And then over time, I find that I'm capable of a lot more things that I thought. My brain doesn't always tell me the truth. And a lot of times I'm taking a motivational interviewing class. They made a point. It's not necessarily what you do, but how you do it. And a lot of things I learned, it's not what I say, but how I say it. And again, it's using that no-fail formula so that you're not perfect. And I'll make one point. Autistic people try harder than anyone I've ever met at communicating. I know I was trying so hard, but if you're using the approaches that don't work, the harder you do those, they're still not going to work. So if you do some things that do work, that create connection, if you have that capability or want to learn that capability, I found my life improved greatly. But so here's a few pitfalls I fell into: sharing related stories when someone was recounting something traumatic. I was in a business situation with some friendly people, and one woman came up to me next time. So I gave her the permission to talk to me and correct me and teach me how to communicate better in that situation. Um, so they can say, sometimes if somebody's recounting trauma and you do too, it can be like you're trying to one up them in public or embarrass them. Um, and correcting people in public, when I was a lot younger, I really valued communication being accurate. And we value accurate communication, or we value facts being accurate. So a lot of times people like us will correct people right then, but that can be very embarrassing for people. Sometimes info dump goes on and on. I find that more innocent, but sometimes like asking for consent before info dumping. But when I get excited about something, I can go on and on about it too. But people kind of feel like, that they're not important if you're going on, and then you're not listening to them about something. Sometimes a very direct communication, and I would even have other autistic people correct me sometimes with this, like be like, dude, wow, that's pretty harsh, or some of the things that would come out of my mouth. Best friend, I would embarrass him so much, some of the things that would come out of my mouth. He was always like, you got to learn to communicate with tact. And I'm like, I don't know if I can learn that, but yeah. Okay. So here's one thing I embarrass myself with. Especially sometimes when people are upset. So I will try arguing facts when they're upset and they're upset about something. And in that moment, what I learned was I need to empathize with that person. in that emotional moment and wait for the emotions to calm down before I may start talking about facts or truth or logic, something that, because I may say all the things this person, oh, it doesn't make logical sense why you feel that way. But in the moment, that person doesn't care about logic. The feelings are taking control. And if you invalidate someone, you don't empathize with someone, that just makes the situation worse. So sometimes you can diffuse a situation with a little bit of empathy. But here's a big surprise. I meet so many neurotypical people. They do all the things we do too. But we seem to get criticized the most for it. So I'm still trying to figure that out. And like I said, communication, I learned it's a skill that I could study. Like I went from not believing it at all that I could do this to practicing. And what I do now, you're seeing the result of like 14 years of work. So again, if you just want to start learning this stuff, or if you try it and you do a lot of reps on it, you practice it for a year and you can't learn, don't beat yourself up, because I've been doing this practicing for 14 years and I'm still not perfect. And you don't have to be a perfect communicator. Even doing some of this stuff part of the time can make a connection with someone. And like in the heat of the moment, sometimes being right matters less than the other person being heard. Um, I remember I watched a show, I think it was Dr. Phil or whatever. He always say, would you rather be right or be happy? And I guess now that I learned how to connect with people, I'm prefer to be happy rather than being right all the time. But I had to learn to let that go. I think part of that was trauma for me, because people didn't take me seriously, because my ideas would be, I would see connections between different things that would fit together other people couldn't. That's a systems level thinking ability. A lot of y'all may have that. And I could pick up patterns other people couldn't. So they'd be like, oh, that's silly. So I think partially why I learned to talk on and on was because that was kind of, I felt like no one would listen to me. But then if no one would listen to me, and then I would talk on and on, that would make them listen to me less. So it was kind of a vicious cycle. And once I learned how to connect with people, I realized it was all about a reciprocal exchange of positive emotions. So I would make them feel good. They would reflect those feelings back at me. I would feel even better. And we just keep doing it until we're all having a great time. But so yeah, two bridge building approaches, where it depends if this feel I always say, if it feels like masking for you, if it burns you out, don't do it. So I got a buddy, and I'm not sure if he's here tonight, but great dude. Um, they're pretty amazing. I mean, their brain runs circles around mine. They can read a thick book and answer questions out of it in like an hour. Um, but very sensitive brain. Someone I admire, very great. My buddy Anchar Seraphim. And what he taught me is good to do. Like if you can't do a lot of the other stuff, disclose difference in communication styles right up front. So maybe introduce yourself like, hey, I'm autistic, or and like I'm autistic, so I tend to communicate a bit differently. I can be very direct. Sometimes I'll go on and on. And what he'll do is he'll give people a signal to do if he's been going on and on, or if they've been going on and on for a long time, like say, raise a finger. And I know to kind of tone it down. Maybe you got a question for me or something like that. But he discloses communication differences before, right when he meets someone usually. Whereas a lot of times I like to ask someone to feel good, give them a smile, ask them a feel good question, do some active listening, get them talking about things they like. And then maybe after that, then I would kind of disclose about my autism or condition that used to be called Asperger's. What you use whichever is best for you. And, a lot of this is a lot of gray areas. It's not black and white. Our brain loves to do that all or nothing thinking, loves to do that black and white thinking. And I had to learn about gray areas. And I think thanks to a lot of medical treatments, like I used to could not understand poetry, but this year I can like read poetry and interpret it. And that just blew my mind. And I can like understand shades of gray and things, because I was that black and white thinking logical computer programmer. When I was young, people would always say, so David Good, he tells the absolute truth no matter what it is. And everything's either absolutely right or absolutely wrong. But yeah, these are a couple little tools I teach my organizers. We can see how we're doing in time. But I'll go to another break here in a second. So yeah, what I found, like, masking, pretending to be someone you're not at all, that just wastes my energy. I'm an ambivert. I go for a big crowd of people, like 100 people, 2 or 3 hours at most. Then I got to recharge. I recharge best one-on-one with someone or with a couple friends. Um, but I see a lot of people when I was misunderstood and I didn't have better communication skills. I was absolutely miserable. I hated people and I thought all people were mean and things like that. Um, and I felt that cost me a lot more energy than learning how to communicate better and building bridges. So I see all this math is exact, it's metaphorical. So I see up front, if I build a bridge with someone, that's costing me less energy in the long term. Um, because I establish a good connection with them and then I can disclose about my differences and we can understand each other. But um, I've gone into autistic burnout too, and that's real rough. I did earlier this year. And when I have strong emotions, like, I'll fall into a lot of old habits, and like that habit of arguing logic when someone's upset. But yeah, I found that building bridges with people works better than just masking 100% and trying to be someone I'm not. And like probably a lot of y'all, I grew up watching a lot of TV, movies. I devoured science fiction books, and so we think we learn about human interaction from those things, and then we try it in the real world. And what works in TV and movies and books doesn't really work in the real world. And a lot of bad behavior of neurotypical people that we see, it's a case of kind of use another metaphor, squeaky wheel getting the grease. So it's like the bad behavior gets elevated in society. So we think that's the way to act. But really, um, I think kindness wins in the long run, being interested in people and things like that. I think that's what makes someone a good friend. Really, I wrote something down a while back and what being a good friend comes down to. Um, Oops, I don't have that note in there, but really, so most people are jealous of other people. Most people don't encourage other people. And most people like try to one up one people and things like that. But if you come into someone's life and you're not a jealous person at all, when they something goes good for them, if you're the first person to congratulate with them and celebrate that win with them, if they're going through a bad time, if you're an encouraging person, I mean, just those few things will set you apart from every other person because that is so rare. I'll let me go on to the next yeah, talked about that. So building bridges versus masking, kind of like intercultural communication. Like when I speak with someone of a different background, I don't speak with my Japanese friends the same way as my Russian and Dutch friends. I'm very much more direct with them. Um, and it's a balance. We got to be authentically who we are, but we also want to be understood the best. So you've got to try. The only way to try it is in the real world. And if it works for you in the real world, I always say anything I teach, try it in the real world, test it out over and over again. If it works for you, great, do it. If not, then maybe you need to learn from somebody else or learn something different. But because I have so many friends and genuine connections in my life, it's life's just so much more great. But here's some practical things that if you can do these, if these are masking for you, I can encourage you not to do it. But maybe over time, I've found I can shift my behavior a little bit. When I want to share a related story, so instead of doing that in public when someone's recounting trauma, afterwards, I will go to them and ask permission to share a story, like say, hey, I've been through something too. Can I tell you about it? Correction. Like instead of doing it in public at a meeting, in front of people, I will go back and ask them chat privately and say, hey, here's where I think you may have been wrong. And then before going on and on, I haven't found I've been able to do this. I get excited and I would just talk and talk. So a skill I would like to learn is act and set before doing that. And then learning tact and communicate with tact and empathy, like they say in the Go Giver Influencer. You can say the truth, but just modify the words and still get your point across. So sometimes communicating a bit more tactfully will help you to be understood a bit better. But the key thing is preserving who you are and preserving your authenticity. And what I've found, the more I've learned communication skills and taken interpersonal communication classes, the more I can be me and show the world who I am and who I really am deep down. So yeah, some quick insights. Oh, a little story, and then we'll see how we're doing on time. Oh, we got some awesome people here. Yeah, my nephew's Professor Middle. She's amazing. I always say she is amazing. She's one of my organizers. And she helps run a 30s and 40s group along with who's in the corner there. Both really great women. Um, yeah, I'll bring up a story I read, I think in a psychology website, is when they changed Chat GPT 4 to 5, Chat GPT's 5 was less agreeable than the older version Chat GPT 4, and people were up in arms. And what the psychologist said in the article is that it's a sad commentary on society that people get so little acceptance and encouragement that they have to go to a machine to get that acceptance and encouragement in their lives, which opens up an opportunity. If you're someone that gives people acceptance and non-judgment and encouragement, I mean, that's just the key to making so many friends. So we'll open up chat. Anybody have any big aha moments so far? We'll take a 2-minute break for now. Alexa, set a time for 2 minutes and kind of take a couple moments to consider. Is there a translation gap you resonate with? Where do you see opportunities for bridge building in your life? Like me, I'm still trying to learn to build better bridges with family and things like that. What feels authentic versus exhausting in any of these skills? And then all in all, it's not black or white. It's not either or. It's finding out what best works for you and customizing it to you. So we'll wait for 2 minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and look in the chat here as you're sharing those insights. Oh, somebody thought one of my examples was funny. That's great. Oh, buddy, emotional validation is the glue for interpersonal emotional safety and connection. Great. Um, yeah, a lot of great comments here. Yeah, somebody mentioned that. Oh yeah, safety concerns when disclosing autism diagnosis. You know, yeah, I talk with a lot of people. They're afraid to disclose at work. Um, because they're afraid of losing their jobs. And that I would say I would consult with someone that knows about that before you would do it. So maybe there's an HR expert you could consult with that's not in your company. Say, hey, what are the benefits if I do? Then I get accommodations, but will that affect promotions or other things? But I mean, I've known people who are in their jobs and they're just so burnt out and miserable that they really, if they're rock bottom, they got nothing to lose. But I would say consult with an expert that knows about that thing before you make that decision. I have not been in that situation. So Alexa, stop. Sorry about that. I'd tell that Alexa to stop. But yeah, I have not been in that situation there. So I would say consult with someone else on that. I'm not the guy to ask, but so I think now what I want to do, I'm going to check the time here a second. Oh, we're at 8. If we got another 10 minutes. Well, actually, what we'll do if we can do another 10 minutes, otherwise, if we have to go now, that's okay too.
David,
Yeah.
we usually have a hard stop at
Okay.
1.5 hours. So 1.5 hours, however you want to use that is
Oh,
is
okay,
that
cool. I wasn't sure if we
okay?
just had an hour or hour and a half, but I think we'll
Yeah,
do
all
this.
inclusive. Yeah,
Yeah,
go
we'll
ahead.
do this and then we'll go into Q&A. And then I'm going to give you the links to these slides so you can download it. I have some things about acceptance commitment therapy, which is an awesome therapy system. I'll just say real quick, it's designed to help you build courage and do the things that you thought you couldn't do, and have a more functional life. Because I was like afraid of going anywhere for getting a migraine, and then my life just exploded after working with a therapist that did acceptance commitment therapy. Um, and what it does essentially says that, accept what's going on with you internally, the uncomfortableness, and then let's take tiny steps toward a more rich and meaningful life, as Dr. Russ Harris says. But right now, I want to do it for 10 minutes, and then we'll go into Q&A. Let's consider this a mini think tank. Let's brainstorm, because we got a lot of great minds here tonight. How can we make those positive emotional connection with people while staying authentically ourselves? Want to focus on building bridges, not like that we have to be fixed, because as autistic people, we have a lot of valuable things, and the way we think is very valuable to society. So we want to be authentically ourselves, but also we want to focus, because what communication skills allow us to do, it allows us to get what we need from society. It allows us to communicate our needs, and influence and persuasion skills will allow us to get what we need from society and from people, and more supports. I've been able to get a lot more understanding from people using some positive communication skills. So what I'd like to do, I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. Alexa, set a timer for 10 minutes. And let's do some brainstorming in chat, or people can come on microphone and share some things if you're comfortable with that.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I think I wrote it earlier in the comments, but how do we distinguish between a healthy fear, knowing our limits, and what's really going to challenge us in good ways?
Yeah, and that is an excellent question. And I'll just tell you what I do. Well, I told you the story of me working that job and pushing myself for 2 months and destroying my health. Now that is an example of being unhealthy. That's also an example of like me all or nothing behavior. When I do something, I tend to be gung ho about it, and then do it too much. I remember earlier this year I went into burnout because I was writing a class during the week, teaching class once a week, also taking like 12 hours of meetings and hosting events on a Wednesday and taking other meetings. And then I tried to get into local Rotary. I went to the first meeting, and my whole body and brain told me, stop. You are in burnout. We're not going to let you do anything more until you rest. So that's an example. And really, it's kind of a gray area. And so I think the best way is the baby steps. Don't be like me and like go gung ho into everything. Is ramp up what you do and try a little bit at a time, because doing something new is very scary, very overwhelming. So try a little bit at a time. And there's something called exposure response prevention. It's a term in psychology, and I actually did it on myself. A psychologist told me later, you were doing them yourself without even knowing what it was, going to those meetups like 30 minutes, an hour at a time, and every time I could stay a little bit longer, so your tolerance goes up. But like I've found, it's having that self-awareness and paying attention to my body and my capabilities, that if I'm around 100 people after a few hours, I start getting pretty tired, anxiety starts going up. So I know those are warning bells. And for me, I got another warning bell because I have chronic migraine, is if I start getting more frequent migraines, um, then part of my brain will say, oh, we're going to keep pushing past it. But then another part will say, hey, we got to relax and move back here. Another part will get mad because we can't do what we want. So the part that tells me to relax has to win in that instance and say, hey, we're going to take it easy on ourselves, because if we get real sick again, we can't afford getting sick for 4 or 5 years again. So yeah, it's there's no simple answer, no black and white answer. It's just that self-awareness, that self-knowledge, whatever kind of testing you can do to get that self-knowledge, and then it's testing your capabilities a little bit at a time. And I got a question here. Well, let's get you unmuted.
Yeah, I was just wanting to answer some of these questions I saw on the slide in terms of ideas for bridge
Yeah,
building
that's great.
strategies that worked for me. What has worked for me is really getting clear on what my needs are as an autistic individual, and those
vary from person to person, right? And I mean, you could always ask ChatGPT, but I think it really helped me to tune into myself and notice in terms of like sensory needs, right? I love wearing sensory friendly clothes, and that's very important to me. And in social settings, like I need to be in quiet spaces. I've shared that with you multiple times,
Yeah.
right? Like when it gets really loud. And so when I get really clear on those things, I've literally written them down and validated myself for having those needs and going, it's nothing, it's not an indication of something being wrong with me. These are just my authentic needs. And then using that as my North Star, and when I go, like, say if I'm hanging out with a friend, I'll literally tell them, like I've told you too, right? Like, hey, can we meet at
Yeah.
this place where I know that it's going to be quiet, the music isn't going to be crazy, and I'll tell them, hey, that's because I'm autistic and I'm not trying to be difficult. You know, I want us to come up with a healthy compromise, but these are some of my non-negotiable needs when I'm
Yeah.
in social settings. And so being very clear about that and not making it mean that, oh, I'm being too much. Because a lot of us are very empathetic. We're hyper attuned to other people's feelings. And we want to be liked because we grew up being the outcast, right? But this takes courage. Like this exercise that I've been working on is like, I have to be so firm on what my needs are and going, okay, some people are going to be okay with that and some people aren't. And the right people are going to want to be with me and meet me in those kinds of ways and meet my needs. So it's just something that I do that I wanted to share.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much. Like, I go to events, we see each other at events, we kind of look out for each other. Because if she gets overwhelmed, then I make sure she's doing okay, and she'll look out for me too. But that's why once you learn how to make friendships, it's pretty amazing. And one thing, she likes fuzzy blankets. I do not like fuzzy. They drive me crazy, man. They drive me crazy. Fuzzy blankets. I like blankets that are not fuzzy. I think that's one of the things that drives me crazy about the most. Um, that's one sensory thing I can't. But reading some other comments here. Someone says they're working on engaging people around their strengths and needs explicitly. Um, Goal of building a culture around honoring strengths and accommodating each other's needs and hoping for reciprocity. Working on that. Oh, that reminds me something. Thanks. I got a message with someone need to slow down a bit. I tend to talk fast, but let's see. Oh, the reciprocity. That's something I learned in Professor Adam Grant's book, Give and Take. There's a thing from game theory, and I talk about it in my classes called a generous tit for tat strategy, is where you start out by doing something for someone and wait for them to reciprocate. So like if you have a friendship with someone and long term they're not reciprocating, they're not reflecting those boundaries, you say like, hey, I can't be around loud overstimulating environments, and they keep wanting you to go to those and they don't respect those boundaries, and that may not be the friend for you. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person, but might mean that you're just not a good fit. But yeah, with the generous tit for tat strategy, you start out by giving to one person and doing them something, wait for them to reciprocate, do something for you. And then that's how you know you have someone to work with. That's what I got out of Professor Grant's book. And that's a great book, Give and Take by Professor Adam Grant. Anybody have any other questions or any ideas that we can share with each other? I'm going to stop my presentation for now.
Earlier, you were talking about accepting things as they are. And I think I left a comment about a little bit about the idea of sexism inherent in corporate America. And
Yeah.
so how do we navigate that in such a way that, yes, you have to accept how things are in the moment, but you also have to be constantly making the world a better place and a fairer place and instilling justice in those processes.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So in accepting commitment therapy, which I don't think we'll have time to get to, but the acceptance part is about accepting your internal reality, accepting that, we're not going to always feel perfect, but that we can take tiny steps toward a rich and meaningful life. Now, Stoic philosophy is kind of like accepting external reality as it is, and then I do that a lot. And then I think, how can I be like water? How can I move around it? How can I use my abilities to move around it? But if I accepted that, there was no place for me in Grand Rapids, and that's how it's always going to be, I would have never created that first meetup group. So I think what acceptance of things that we can't control is useful to us so that we don't get overwhelmed. And then we take those steps to improve our society, improve our communities. I don't think acceptance of reality means that we can't take steps to improve things. It's just saying, hey, this is reality. I have to deal with it. How can we get around it or make things better?
Just going to read a couple of comments that are flagged
Oh, great.
you read that I'm not sure I don't think we went through yet. First one is self-validation is very important because then we can feel solid in who we are and have less nervousness in socializing and forming friendships with others. Actually, that kind of makes me reminds me of a concept of masking that I've heard folks discuss in the past in this group, and that is, the idea that masking is, like something like a tool that you can choose when you want to use it and when you want to turn it off. And does masking at all, if you're masking, does it matter what the intent or whether you're sort of voluntarily masking or you feel that you're forced to mask, if that impacts, your sense of preserving authenticity or not? Because I could see it as if someone's being forced to mask all the time and they feel they have no choice but to keep on masking, then that feels very stressful and coercive. And I could see someone's sort of integrity feeling compromised. But I think in this comment, if you have if you're very self-validated, then does that give you sort of more bandwidth to choose when you mask? But also like when you're doing that, you don't feel that you're compromising yourself, because how you feel about yourself is not necessarily dictated by whether you're masking or not, because you control the masking.
Yeah, it's a lot of gray area, depending upon one person's capabilities. I was like inspired by my buddy when I first met him. I wasn't as skilled a communicator, even though I had been studying it. One of the things he taught me was he was able to choose his special interests to be like neuroscience and psychology and communication, so he could figure out people. And that was an interesting concept. And I was like, could I enjoy something like that too? So led me really to deep dive into it and practice it. And now I see it as kind of fun, seeing who I can connect with, who I can learn from. So I'm getting enjoyment out of the process. Kind of all depend. It's a gray area. All depends your capabilities. All depends on what you enjoy. I know there's autistic people who they enjoy being alone, and that's perfectly fine too. That they have zero negative side effects from being alone. Not everybody needs to be with people, whereas I have a deep craving for connection, human connection, and being with people. Just want to let people know, and then I'll get to question. So I put a couple links in chat. The first one is to view the Gamma presentation, and the second one is to download a PDF from my Google Drive so that y'all can read it offline. And there's some extra info about acceptance commitment therapy and how I use those tools in leadership, which is interesting. And I wanted to go to, we had a question.
Yes, I was just going to add to the previous statement that Casey Zoom was reading. One of the things that I use to kind of differentiate is, as an autistic person who works with a lot of neurodivergent folks in therapy, um, I talk about a lot, like kind of knowing your audience, that I can be authentic to who I am. So how I do therapy with an 8-year-old versus how I might do therapy with a 37-year-old, I can still be authentic to myself, but knowing my target audience and kind of adjusting communication based off of the audience with whom I'm communicating. And so that it's not necessarily to me personally being inauthentic or masking, it's just more of a mindset of I'm adjusting my communication style to fit their needs at this time.
That's kind of how I see it too. And what I learned in a lot of sales training, I think everybody should take a sales class, especially if you're in college or university as an elective. Because basically, I think sales is about the most useful skill you can learn because the reason why people make friends is emotional. And the reason why you get hired depends upon a lot of times upon your ability to sell yourself. So learning why people buy helps you in all the different areas of your life. And a comment, my friend said, question that helps is the way I'm showing up driven by fear that may be masking, fear of being disliked, rejected, or truth. If it's driven by truth, it might not be masking. But if it's totally you're afraid and you're trying to adjust your behavior to like fit in and not have someone make fun of you. That's in my groups. We have rule no one's going to make fun of anybody or be mean to anyone, or they answer to me. There's been people we've kicked out and taken care of because they were not nice people. But nobody's going to come into my house and violate the oasis and be mean to someone. So you come to our groups, it's a safe place. And we would go to whatever lengths we have to do to make that a safe place. And we know a lot of people. So, but, oh, I want to do an ending slide. I skipped some of my slides. I'm going to share that screen again. Because, oh, I want to give a shout out. My buddy calling in. He's going to be working with our Sarasota group. My buddy called in tonight. Great to see him. And off Broadway show, and it's about kind of being autistic and mental health and OCD. Really great show. I flew down to Sarasota to see it, and hopefully I get to fly down to Sarasota, see him this winter. He flew up to see me in Michigan, and we had a great time. We had a whole big breakfast of pancakes. We drove out to Rosie Mountains Park and ran up and down sand dunes and stuff. About did in the end. But hey, we got through it. We did it, and we survived. So let me get that last slide here for you, and then we can do some more Q&A. So pop this up here. Full screen. It's interesting when you're real nervous, even simple things become difficult. But yeah, just great big thank you. Oh, we got some great, awesome people in this picture. I'll tell you about them in a minute. But big thank you, Yale Cultural Autism Studies Unit. Like this is a bucket list, a dream opportunity. And, reach out to me via my personal website. We got links to our meetup organization. All our meetups were in person, both sides of Michigan. Soon we'll be in Fukuoka, Japan, working on the Sarasota group. That'll be soon. And feel welcome to reach out if you're booking me for a speaking or training engagement. I just want to also give a shout out to Sheldon Clubhouse, part of Clubhouse International. What they do is this Clubhouse International, 500 around the world. And I go to Sheldon because anyone with a severe mental illness can go there during the day, and it helps them recover. What it does is it drastically reduces hospitalizations. So I was in Lansing with a team. We were meeting with legislators saying, if you fund Clubhouse with Medicaid dollars, we will save Medicaid a boatload of money. Same with private insurance companies too. And it's such a wonderful place. Like a lot of these people would be going to the hospital a lot if they didn't have Sheldon Clubhouse, but it gives them a community. For those, they help run the clubhouse. For those that are able to go to work, they get them job trainings, get them back into jobs. And ours even has a service where they will go with a member to their doctor appointment if they can't understand their doctor or communicate as well or remember things. But yeah, just to shout out some of the great. Oh, we got a lot of this is one of our latest photos. This is at Cafe Bobo. We've been there every Friday since 2016. Minus COVID, but my buddy giving a big cheer there, and we got a lot of great people in there. My buddy and all that. But yeah, I put a lot of photos of great people in here just because I see people I know get a big smile on my face, the nerves help go away. Anybody got any other questions? We got 5 minutes. Real grateful that they gave us an extra 30 minutes here.
There is a comment that's like to be read that seems like it's related to the mental health bit. Says you touched on something that neurodivergent and neurotypicals do, and I'm wondering if you can say anything about the propensity of neurotypical therapists or counselors to, quote, normalize, unquote, quote, what I'm experiencing. I felt that it disregards that what I've gone through is not, quote, typical, unquote, but maybe I'm misunderstanding what normalizing is meant to do.
Oh, I can talk about that too. So for me, normalizing, if it's done right, and y'all can feel welcome to correct me, but is for me, like if somebody I'm working with one of my leaders, oh hey, shout out. Great. Thanks for the thank you. If I'm working with one of my leaders, and they're having trouble with a certain thing, I will normalize because for the situations that you've been in life and for the trauma you've gone through and all the BS that you've gone through in your life, a lot of your behavior, a reasonable reaction to those circumstances would be that behavior. So don't beat yourself up about that behavior. Anybody in your situation going through what you did and having the brain like you did, that's how they would react. So don't beat yourself up about it. And that's what normalization is to me. It's about your circumstances, what you've gone through, your reaction to it is reasonable. Anybody else have any other questions? Got a couple minutes left. Again, so grateful for this time tonight. Hopefully I've did your group a little bit of justice and given you all some good information, things to think about.
This is a set of points and information that we rarely get here. Really interesting, generates a lot of questions. Yeah, really happy to have a completely different point of view than we usually get.
Yeah, my pleasure. I actually quit college to be a software developer because I was tired. I was going for e-commerce, and I won't say which university, but the department head didn't know a thing about it, and I had been doing it for years already. So she would have me teach the class instead of her. And I wasn't getting paid, so I got a bit frustrated, and I was like, I'm gonna see if a company will just hire me. I became a full-time software developer, but even if you're studying in IT, finish that degree because I tried to go back a dozen years later, and they're like, "We're sorry, most of your classes are invalid except for your gen eds because they're computer science classes. So those kind of classes expire, and at least finish that associate's because once that you have that degree, nobody can take it away from you."
I had a really non-traditional educational path myself, and I love it when autistic people are so passionate that they find a way no matter what. That's something I really love about our community. So I will say thank you now, and I know people really, really engaged with things you said, and yeah, thanks again so much for coming, David.
Yeah, my pleasure. And try out that no fail formula. Download those slides. I'll paste it again in chat real quick. I'm going to put it in the comments I'll put it in the Facebook event comments and in the group comments too. So you can download those slides, practice that no fail formula. Go to davidgood.org, shoot me a message via there. Let me know how it's working with you. If you're having trouble with it, shoot me a message too. I'll help you with it. But yeah, that's the most that I would say that resulted in the greatest improvement in my life once I was taught that. Because now I'm not afraid I don't beat myself up. I don't feel shame over mistakes or things going wrong. But thank you
Great.
so
Thanks so
much. I
much.
think we're good here.
Yeah, everybody look at our Facebook page and the web page to see things coming up. We've got more amazing speakers right on the horizon. So we'll see you all very soon.
Hey, we'll see y'all later. Have an awesome night.